Wow. Everyone thought we were gone, but like a phoenix from the ashes, we're back. Actually, no one thought we were gone, but it's fun to make a
Well,
fake beef.
we did take a tiny mini break,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. We had a bunch of things happening. I had to disappear onto something for a couple of weeks.
yeah, we had good reason, okay, all you haters.
Yeah, we'll make up fake haters just so we could. Just like we have millions of fans, we have fake haters just for the fake clout.
Yeah, we we just hide all the comments and all of that kind of stuff on YouTube, you know.
Yeah, 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 fake drama. I'm pretty sure it must happen. I swear, some of the beef you see people doing having on YouTube, is this scripted? Have they agreed that there's a whole arc here? I mean, I'm sure
I
plenty of it's legit,
think
and when it's with randos on the internet, I guess it could be anything. But we're almost at 7:30. For those who are
um,
listening to two people struggling to hold a conversation in public.
yep, that's us.
Let me just to hold a conversation in public.
Yep, that's us.
Right, I might make you a little bit louder. Actually, no, I'll make me a little bit quieter
Okay.
because
Uh,
you're already as loud as you can be. Man, yeah, it's been a few. It's been what, almost a month since we last on, or a month?
yeah, probably 4 weeks because we
Yeah, yeah.
doing the off weeky thing.
We're
Yeah,
doing great for a weekly show when we normally do once every 2 weeks, and then we haven't done it for a month. All
yeah.
right, it's 7:30. Let's. I'm switching over to your screen now, Jake.
Okay,
So
let's
let
do it.
us pray the technology works. And in the little preview in YouTube,
We are the gods of the technology.
there you go. It's working. So
Woohoo! We did a thing.
let me just quickly full screen and wait for YouTube compression to catch up.
We did a thing and it
Yeah,
worked.
yeah. I can read your
Lol.
screen. So,
Nice.
hello, Mr. Franklin. Um, all right. So, what are we doing today, Jacob?
Today we are doing a hack the box machine called Busqueda. That's my Spanish accent.
Busqueda? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it properly.
It means
But
search.
Busqueda, which means search in Spanish. That's right.
Yes. See,
Uh,
as they say in Spain. And a lot of America, South America.
so we start off, as always, with our little Nmap scan. I've already run it because it takes, well, not even that long, 10 seconds, but that's too long.
Swear too impatient.
We're way too impatient for that. We see, as we typically do, SSH is open. And also on port 80, we've got some sort of website which redirects to searcher.htb. So we need to
Do the usual
dump
and edit our
that in
host
our
file.
host file. And we can get rid of that one because I think we've already streamed that, so it's all good. 1 sec, let me look it up because I've already forgotten what it is.
Like we've always mentioned, host
Hey.
files. The host file is a bit like a DNS server, I guess. Like in the order of looking up domains. The host file. There's one on Windows as well in the Windows directory somewhere in there. Um, Everything will look at
System
that
32
first.
drivers,
Yeah,
etc host, something like that.
and if there's a match for the domain name, it'll use whatever's set there locally, which is how some ad blockers work. I think they write or some of those ad lists, you just put them in there and it'll start trying to block the domains by
Yeah.
sending them nowhere. And now we're going to go there and see if it works.
Yep. Let's browse there and see what we get. Okay, cool. We have got a search platform website thingy. We've got our burp proxy running in the background just in case we need it. And we're just going to give this a little go and see what happens. So it looks like we've got a bunch of different search engines that we can choose from. Just a couple. Oh, they're not even in our. Oh, they are. Never mind. What are we choosing from today?
I mean, let's go the vintage Google for the classic search experience.
Do a classic Google for us and see what happens. So when we click that, we see that it just basically builds a URL. If we go back to auto redirect, we can assume that it redirects us to that Google search.
And
Which
you didn't get
does.
because you've added the certificate.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have. Yeah, so normally if you try and access public internet sites, you get a certificate error for burp, but it's pretty easy to just add that as an exception, and then burp will happily intercept SSL traffic properly. Cool. So we've got a little web app that doesn't do a whole lot. It just redirects us to a whatever website we pick, and these are probably predefined somewhere in the back end. Clicking around and sort of seeing what's on the app, we notice that there's version number. Typically with CTFs, when there's an app with a version number, that means that that specific version of this application is vulnerable to something. So
someone in another chat thing just mentioned that that's assuming there's no SSL pinning for the burp proxy stuff. So sometimes even when you install a cert, it still won't work. However, if you always use burp proxy and it's a fresh web browser, like you've deleted all of the context, like so, not sure if cert pins disappear when you delete your history, but then I'm pretty sure cert pinning stops working because it requires the website to hand over the thumbprints for the certificates. So, anyway, continue.
Yep. So we sort of poke around this repository looking at issues and pull requests, and I think, let's see, it's in here somewhere. It's probably not an open one. There's a pull request in here that is a security one. Yeah, maybe it's an issue.
This is the sort of thing where if we thought about it,
yeah,
we'd have copied a link, but
we didn't do a huge amount of prep.
But similar to when we're searching for vulnerabilities, if it's a project and it's on GitHub, sometimes you'll find. So, I think there can be a misassumption that NVED or CVE has every single possible vulnerability. It's only got the vulnerabilities people bother reporting, and I think there is some process around who can actually create the CVE number, which is why some companies just have entire blocks of CVEs like kind of booked out for future use. When you like cruise the NVD or CVE like database, so
yeah, you have to submit the vulnerability to a body that kind of reviews it and decides if it's worthy of a CVE number, and it's a whole thing.
And sometimes people will raise security issues and never raise the fact that they should be a CVE. So, cruising the GitHub issues as well, for especially for like lesser known projects. If you find something obscure, again, I will caveat that with a very definitive. Don't go searching the internet for obscure stuff people have running just so you can find vulnerabilities, because that is not the ethical or right thing to do. But if you're a client and doing a pen test or a red teaming and someone uses some obscure tool, check out the GitHub repo and see if there's any like reported issues. Anyway, onwards.
Onwards and upwards. So yeah, we see there's a. It's not actually a change request, pull request. I think it's just a commit. Anyway, there's a commit here that removes the eval from the CLI method, and because it's running as a Python app, we know that eval can lead to code execution. So taking a little look at what was changed in version 2.5.2, which is after the version that we're running, we can see here that it's running eval on engine. Search is the query, which is input that we control. And then there's also copy and open web. So taking a look at different ways that we can exploit the eval. Hang on, let me go back to my little reference guide. Boom. Plenty of articles and things like that out there. I think, but this is the one that we used. And basically it runs through how we can use eval to execute arbitrary code. Something just like 1 + 1 = 2. So we're going to go ahead and try that in burp. So our proxy history should have the search that we made. Let's take this one and send it over to repeater. So when we run that, we get obviously our little query again, and now we're going to input some text in here. Based on sort of what this guy's talking about. So we have to import, we want to test if we can get code execution on the operating system underneath. So we import os.system and then run a command. So we'll just run this part for now. I believe you have to actually backtick it. We're just going to run ID. And we don't get a response because I did something wrong.
It's always a case. What is it, like no plan survives first contact with the enemy?
Yeah, because that's not a backtick, that's just a regular quote.
There you go.
Sure. Nope, it's not that either. Oh, hang on, there's a dot there too. Aha. This is what happens when I don't refer to stuff properly in our write-up.
This is the joy of kind of like trying to form deliberately malformed or like injection attacks. Is getting the right characters in the right places, escaping the right things. Happens to the worst of us.
And making the brackets line up too also helps. Google engine is not recognized. Okay, that is not an error that we got last time.
Not a capital G.
Yeah, well, that's what. So that part came directly from the app itself.
Right.
We can try it with. Ooh,
Completely different error?
that's even worse of an error, yeah. I mean, that's just re-rendering the. Okay, fine. Let's grab the value because that's what it actually sends in the background.
If you could make the burp text a bit bigger as well.
We can try and do that.
Yeah.
If I can remember where that is. Project? Nope. Interface display. That's the display. That's not the actual.
Yeah, it's a combination of
Yeah.
So we're trying something new where like Jake's not streaming from his computer. We're using something called, what was it again? Video.ninja, so that he's sharing a screen with me and then I'm sharing out via Discord. No, not Discord, OBS. We were going to use Discord, but then we got scuppered by the insane like level of cost to do anything on Discord that is beyond 720. Um,
Huh.
have you
Don't
figured
laugh. I'm totally not blind.
Have you figured
There
it
we
out
go.
yet? What was
Yeah,
it?
it was a comma, not a dot.
Oh, yeah, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah. So, sorry. So basically, the idea of what we're trying to achieve and where all of these quotes and commas and dots and stuff came from, I should probably take a step back. So this is the code that's vulnerable. And what we want to inject is, say, we want to make query something like this, which is our command. But then we also don't want it to do everything else. It's a lot like a SQL injection. So we're basically adding, what we've done is added a single quote, which closes the search off, adding a comma to update the parameters that come in here. And then when we add our bracket, extra bracket to close off the function, the search function, and then the hash key is just like a Python comment, so everything else afterwards gets ignored. So that's where all this extra stuff comes from. And as we can see, when we run that, we actually finally get a proper response. I'm just blind and didn't make that part copy pastable.
So I'm
Now,
just rearranging. I zoomed it in a bit so that people could see that a bit better. And now I'm just rearranging the screen. All good. Yeah, cool. So it's much like because an eval is you're basically giving it a string of text and saying run this as if it was Python.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is so weird that there's an app that someone's made that does that. Like unless it was someone's uni assignment or something, it seems a bit like it's the sort of thing like you. I don't think I've ever legitimately used an eval anywhere for anything.
Not that I could think of, no.
Like, I'm
um,
sorry, I don't mean to sound like I'm critiquing whoever wrote that app. You know, it looks like they fixed the issue, and there's all sorts of reasons why you might have, I guess, decided an eval was the easiest way to do it. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, at the time, maybe that's all they knew how to do.
yeah,
So next step is to turn this into some sort of reverse shell. But because we're dealing with web request and our reverse shell has all sorts of funky characters like slashes and ampersands and greater thans and less thans and everything,
so maybe
we're
it's
going to
bigger
need
again.
to encode our request so that it passes. It can be sent through HTTP, but also executed by the application. And to do that, we're going to use base64 because it's easy. So let's start by building a little proof of concept to make sure that we can execute this. And basically what I did was take those guys, just the text, those guys, and base64 encode it, which we can do actually in decoder here. Oops, I did a capital G in my example that I'm about to copy paste, so I better do that here too. Hey. So if we go encode as base64, we get this. And then if we echo that into something like base64 in our terminal, we get our plain text output again. So in theory, we should be able to send this whole command over in the request and get those guys as a response.
Yeah, sweet. Sorry, everyone, just resizing the screen again. Back to smaller.
Nice.
I probably should like duplicate the whole source so that I can have one that's like, oh, my bad, just clicking around like a mad dog. So that I can have one that I've got zoomed in and can pan around in, and then flip back to the non-zoomed in one.
Well, Yeah, because you're using OBS, aren't you? So you should be able to do
Yeah.
scenes
Up.
for like a zoomed in and a non-zoomed in
Oh
or
no!
whatever.
Oh, this is like live TV. I'm just. Oh gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
somehow I've reversed it. This is great. If you make it too small, it goes backwards. Yeah, there we go. And now it's upside down. Okay, bear with me.
Oh, the most professional streamers.
Yes, mate,
That is
I'm
a
loving this. I'm no longer like this is no longer an infosec stream. This is just a what can you do with uh,
transforming.
ah. Ben
I don't know.
Franklin says he's done an eval or two, but never for anything deployed. Oh yeah, in more limited languages, you might use an eval. There are some cases like where it's an easy way to run arbitrary code, like you when you need to run arbitrary code, which sometimes you have to do. Anyway, okay. So I've got the zoomed in one and the non-zoomed in one. Guys, we're back in action.
Nice, we're back in action. Okay, so we basically what we've put in our terminal, we put into our little system section and run that, and we can see that we get the decoded text in our response. So taking that another step further again, we are going to then pipe that to bash, which will fail because those guys command isn't actually a bash command, which is fine, but it shows that we can decode something and then run it
It also shows
as
that it should be a bash command.
it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
should be.
yeah.
I'm surprised it doesn't. You know how sometimes it goes, "Oh, did you mean this thing from apt?" That would be. We should add
It'd
something
be
to
great. He's like, what?
apt.
Anyway,
Anyway, so we do a similar thing to our. Let me just go back to decoder, and we'll do ID instead. Interesting. That's not what I had my ID command as being. But anyway, so we base64 encode our ID command instead. And this time when we run it, it looks like this. And we get the ID command actually executing.
nice.
So now we're going to basically do the same thing, dump that through repeater, make sure it all works.
Someone suggested we alias those guys to rm-rf-allow-root and then slash. Which
Could do that.
that like look if you're playing any game, running that will increase your frame rate if you're running on Linux. So it's like it's the old oh I've got lag, oh Alt F4. Anyway.
Yeah, so our little proof of concept shows that we can base64 encode something and then still execute it on the box. So now we can go and take our crazy reverse shell, which looks something like this, except with new IP addresses. 16.2.
So one of the laws of humanity, you cannot remember the IP address you just looked at.
Yeah, except, well, Carly gives me mine up here, and then it's the target one that I'll keep forgetting and having to relook up.
Yeah.
Okay, and we get a nice little piece of base64 there. And we are going to do the exact same thing this time. Paste it there and set up a listener. What did I do? 9001. And hope that this works. Yay! So we can see our listener called our reverse shell.
No, indeed. So read the comment about forgetting the last IP address you just looked at. IP version 6 fixes that by making sure you can remember no IP address ever.
Yeah, you just always have to look it up every single
So
time.
that's based on a comment. All right.
Cool. We are just going to do our standard kind of poke around the boxy stuff, look at password file, and we see that we are the only user that's 1,000 or above, which means we're probably straight into the user. And if we cd to home, we can see that there's a user.txt, which we have access to. -c.
Oh, nice. Don't have to do that annoying intermediary step of going from service account to or service user to actual user.
Yeah, we're just straight in the box as user, and we get the user flag. It doesn't print new lines, so that's actually the first 10 characters of the flag.
This is actually unrealistic because they're not running the service as root.
So we know that it has SSH on the box. Looking at our home directory, there's no SSH or authorized keys file, so we don't know the user's password. We don't have any private keys or anything readily available, so we're just going to dump ours in there by going makedir.ssh.
You should probably come up with a name for this, like cuckoo nesting or something, where you put your own, like, you're putting your egg in another bird's nest. It's a bit like putting your SSH key in someone else's trusted authorized keys file.
Where am I? Streams? Yeah. We are going to call this those guys with no password because we're good at that. Cool.
Yeah.
Now we cat those guys .pub.
For reference, us not using passwords and SSH keys is a convenience thing because definitely we've just put the entire key on the stream, so there's no point in passwording it. I mean, we don't use them for anything particularly important. I guess if you were logged in to hack the box... Oh no, because we get the ones where we get the dedicated instances.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cuckoo if you also delete their access. Yes, that too. But in reality, it's a good idea to password SSH keys. Especially when, Oh, so it was the public key we put on the stream as well. My bad, not the private bits. It's fine.
No.
Yeah. Good point.
Not that
Someone just mentioned that. But yeah, passwording them's not a bad idea in most circumstances. Just another layer of make sure, because otherwise SSH keys work as the same as a key to your front door. Anyone who's got it can get in. So if you password it, that's just an extra level of comfort.
That's it.
Of course, all the real chads use SSL certs, so... All right.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do anything with the random art, but anyway.
I reckon if you've got a Linux box at home, just put that public key, just screenshot the stream there, put that public key in your authorized keys file. That'd be great.
And then send us your IP address as well. That's
yeah. We'll need that as well. Anyway, onwards.
Yeah, so we've added our public key to the authorized keys file, which means that we can log in as SVC using our key and hopefully not a password, depending on how the server's configured. And when we try that, we can log in with a key and don't need to know SVC's password.
Nope. It's great.
So now we've upgraded our shell without having to upgrade our shell over here.
Yeah.
Basically, is why we do that. And now we've got a bit of persistence. It's quite noisy, but it works.
Yeah. If you're a responder like Blue Teamer and you had server logs, you'd start seeing SSH logins potentially for users that you wouldn't expect to see SSH logins. Potentially, if you were going to be sensible about it, you'd set up your SSH config to disable SSH specifically for like service account users. You explicitly have to like SU from another user account across or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Someone's just sent me an IP address, and I'm not sure if I should trust the IP address that you've just sent.
I don't think that you should.
This IP address smells like honey. Anyway,
So taking a little poke around, we try sudo, but we need a password, which we don't know.
yeah,
Having another look at the user's home directory, we see that there's a git config file, which we want to have a look at. Because it shows that there is probably some gitty stuff going on that we might be able to pull a repo, look at some source code, get some creds. Looks like there's a user called Cody somewhere around here. We'll look at things like opt, because all the optional software and things like that usually go in here, custom scripts, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
We see that there's a
Treat
few things from root.
treat Linux directory, the Linux directory structure, like people treat IP address classing, which is something that used to be strictly adhered to in the 90s, but is now not really more than a suggestion. But in general, opt is where you're going to find stuff that isn't from the, what are you going to say, like whatever package manager and stuff's in use. You've also got var user and all of that as well. So stuff
Yeah.
could end up anywhere, but opt is always a good place to look.
Yeah, exactly.
It's where like a
And we
lot
can
of
see,
off the shelf and downloaded stuff recommends you set it up and stuff like that. So
yeah. And I mean, looking at the permissions in here, we can see root owns contained, and we can't do much with that. And scripts, we can actually at least see what's in here,
we can
and
execute
we
them as
can
well.
execute them,
Yeah.
but we can't actually do anything else with them. So, I am. So let's try and run them and see what happens. We can't run that one. Can't run that one. I don't think we can actually run any of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, we can't do nothing in here. Anything in Git? Nope, can't do nothing in Git.
Mission denied. Yeah.
Mission denied.
Oh,
Okay.
and why we might not be able to run them is we don't actually have read on them. I think you need read and execute.
Read and execute.
Yeah. Like the Python binary is trying to open the script as us. Yeah. Luckily, I just beat the person who's just commented in the other thing.
So we keep sort of poking around, and eventually we look at the source code for the web app that we were running originally, and there is a Git directory in here as well.
So I like Benjamin Franklin's comment how on Linux he always creates a program files directory just to confuse people. Anyway,
/d/program files. Anyway, so yeah, there's a Git directory on here that we can have a look at, and we've got permissions to do pretty much whatever we want to in here. So we poke around looking for some info about what the repo URL or whatever might be, so that we can pull it down and have a look at stuff locally, which leads us to the config file. And if we cat config file, we do get the URL, but we also notice that it's doing a HTTP fetch, clone, whatever you want to call it, which has some credentials hard-coded in it.
So this has Gitia running on it.
Yeah. So we also get another domain, which is Gitia. Is that what you said? Not
Gitia, yeah. Gitia.
I would have called it Git, like, anyway. Git. So we've got some credentials. We try them with our service account when we did our sudo command. It asked us for a password. We're just going to try that, and we see that there's a bit of password reuse happening, and this service account is probably Cody. And now we can run something as root.
So to run that
And
back, we don't actually know this user's password before this point because
no,
we've managed to stick our own SSH key in the authorized keys file. And in some config, we've found the inline like HTTP auth style of credentials in a URL for a Git repo, and the password was the same. So
yep, that's it.
very
So
nice.
we are allowed to run one of those scripts that we just tried to run without sudo as root now that we know the password. So let's just give it an exact go and see what happens.
Yeah, the way sudo works is I'm pretty sure it needs basically an exact like string match. So
It needs the absolute paths. We can't
yeah,
just run sudo python 3. It has to be user
yeah.
bin 3. Yeah, that's right. Cool. So running this initial system checkup.py, it looks like we've got a few commands that we can run as our action. So star must just list out what these are. So we are going to run that again, and starting from the top, docker ps. And maybe I make this a bit bigger. Is that
Oh, yeah. This is already right. So for context, Jake did this box. I haven't done this box.
Yep.
And so as an observer, I instantly know that is like literally just in the background, probably running Docker PS, like forking out to another process and getting the output.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we can see here that we've got a Getia instance and a MySQL instance
Oh, running in Docker containers.
running in Docker containers. Yeah. So that's cool. We're going to just keep working our way down the list and do inspect. And we need a format and a container name, which we can get from the previous command up here. And we're just going to try the last one, which is full checkup. Boom. And something went wrong with full checkup.
Oh, that's useful.
Yeah. What is interesting, though, if we look back up at our scripts directory, there was a full checkup.sh. So if we head on over to, say, temp and just actually we'll do like a nano full checkup.sh and actually I skipped a step. Sorry everybody.
Naughty.
So if we run the same command but this time from what's this one?
Oh, yeah.
This time from the scripts directory,
It's
we get some output.
it's like
Which,
relative path.
yeah, so this system checkup.py is using a relative path to run a script based on this name.
So Jay, apparently, according to one of the guys in the other chat, you're gonna have to revoke. We're gonna have to revoke your computer license.
I know.
You use Nano.
I know, but it's easier and it's less prone to.
You should be using Ed.
Not that we haven't already made enough mess ups this stream.
And what's the one that like
that
all the like hardcore Unix like Crustodons like using what the Emacs? That's right. Where they're like, I browse the web in Emacs. I watch YouTube in Emacs. It was a pretty funny video of some dude making fun of people who use Emacs. Yeah, but Ed is the editor you should be using. Anyway, let's get back to it. Sorry. Okay, so this just tells us what processes are running and ports and stuff.
Yeah. So it just sort of
So from here, can I guess what the escalation path is?
You sure can.
You're gonna write a checkup.sh file that just has a reverse shell in it, or
Yeah.
a privesc.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
sort of three ways we could handle this. We can just get it to like cat the root flag, which is kind of boring, or we can either spin up a reverse shell, which is what I'm going to do, or we can just run a command that dumps our public key into roots SSH authorized keys file as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not game enough to do ed, so we'll do v instead. Was it full checkup? See, I know how to do this. I for insert mode, then you can paste stuff, except I need to change my IP address back to 16.2, and we're going to listen on 9002. Then we exit that mode and we write and quit it.
Now,
Am I
now they're not
redeemed
happy
myself
with you
with
because
that?
you folded to peer pressure. You should have stuck with your guns, Jake, and used nano.
Oh, I can't win, can I?
Anyway,
No, it's all
no,
good.
very good work. So reverse shell in an sh file, well, a
Yeah.
shell script.
Then we need to give it execute permissions, and
Yeah.
we need to set up a listener nc-nlvp 9002.
So what I'm trying to remember, like what the abstract version of this vulnerability is. It's basically a poor way of referencing files. So using relative paths instead of either absolute paths, or building a path based on, like, where you expect things to be.
Yeah.
The same thing happens in like a bunch of other places, but yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, and that's it. And we can actually, if we really wanted to, I mean, now that we're root, we can go and take a look, but also we get the domain for the git instance, and also if we wanted to go back to our docker inspect command, hang on, let me just, oh, I killed my session, hang on. It's hung because we got our root shell, and it's actually passing it all through into there.
Nice.
Uh,
Handy side note from someone: if we ever create our own CTFs, configure SSHD to have authorized keys file equals none, so that you can't drop SSH keys into people's home directories.
nice.
Or just find the like most scuffed PAM modules for authentication mechanisms on Linux boxes.
Yeah, so trying to have a guess at what this docker inspect does, we're going to assume it runs the docker inspect command, and reading through the docker, we kind of get a feel for how this works, what its arguments are, what its formats are, because it talks about format and container name. So heading on back to, let's just go to op scripts, because this part is bonus content that I haven't actually tried. We're going to run this with the format something like we want the config. So we should be able to just do something like this. Let's see if this works. And the instance ID, which is that. Okay, that was probably a useless thing to try and grab. Let's just change it to not the config.image. We'll just get the config. There we go. That's a bit more useful.
Nice.
Maybe not. It's a bit more info at least. But we do get some info. So we get a username, we get a database password, which I think is different. Does that look different to the other one? Cat creds. Yep, that's different to that one. So now we should, in theory, be able to log into this container using these creds, and we should be able to do the same thing for the other one, this one, the MySQL instance.
Yes, this is so one of the
And then we get the
one of the
MySQL user and root password.
so one of the patterns for injecting secrets into Docker containers is environment variables. And yeah, those kind of hang around. So
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're able to view here. And then if we wanted to now, we could go and connect and poke around in those databases or in the Git instance as an admin.
Yeah. There are ways to solve that, especially in more managed Docker environments like Kubernetes and stuff. They start to be able to solve it, or you can solve it directly in your app by pulling credentials and caching them in memory in the app. I mean, it's better than having a file on a file system, I guess, but it's something to bear in mind that when with Docker containers, especially like if you're using like some of the management tools, you are sticking secrets in environment variables sometimes. Anyway.
Yes, those are things that other people can pull out.
Yeah.
Using things like Docker Inspect.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, that's kind of it for this one.
Yeah. Or AWS Secrets Manager. Indeed, that is a good place to store your secrets. I mean, I'm pretty sure behind the scenes, like ECS, literally just when you spin up a container, takes the secret out of Secrets Manager and dumps it in an environment variable. But ECS is fairly isolated. So anyway, that was my rant for the moment.
That's a reasonable rant, I think.
I thought best practice is just to bake them into the Docker image. Yes, like a good cake. Here is my root key for everything, just in the container. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in.
Yep. Thanks for tagging along.
We are done.
And making fun of me.
Oh, mate, always up for bullying.
Yeah.
We're modelling a healthy working relationship. It's just bands, boys. Don't worry.
Just bands.
You'll cry all by yourself later. No, all good.
That's it. I'm going to cry myself to sleep now.
Thanks, guys. Keep it real and have a good one. Stay safe.
See ya.